Hello, everyone. My name is Niels Rubellion Mofio. I am a nonprofit leader and have been one for well over 18 years. And I'm also the founder of V2R. V2R is a community and resource hub for social impact and nonprofit leaders. And this is part of our Masterclass series where we have conversations that are meant to be realistic in what you're actually dealing with and to support you and where you want to go. The conversation we're going to be having this evening is around creating a culture of accountability without micromanaging. A couple of housekeeping things. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. And after our brief presentation, we'll take some time and respond to them. And with that, I am going to share my screen and we will get started. Alrighty, just make sure I got everything here so I can see y'all and we can get it moving. All right, creating a culture of accountability without micromanaging. Let's set the stage first in talking about this. Like, accountability is essential for high performing teams. Yes, we know that. That's true. But often it's confused with control. Leaning too heavily on oversight leads to burnout, disengagement, and a breakdown in trust. So while someone thinks they're actually doing what they need to have a strong, high performing team, unfortunately, it cannot feel that way for folks who are being managed. And so, something that I often tell folks when they're walking into leadership is that, when you become a parent, for some of us who have been parents, when you become a parent and you have a moment where you're looking at something you said or something you did, and you're like, oh, wow, that's what my mom said, or that's what my dad did. And all of a sudden, you're like, man, I am parenting like my parent. And that can be either good or bad, depending on how you feel about how you were parented. Um, it's actually really similar to the first manager you had. You might not realize it, but you're probably managing very similarly to your first manager. And that comes with some of the good and some of the bad. So, in order for you to really think about how you are managing, there's a few questions that I want you all to consider. One is think about how you wanted to be managed. How do you want to be managed? Then think about how your previous boss treated you, the good and the bad. What were the things that you liked about how you were managed? What were the things you did not like about how you were managed? If there's something that you liked in a manager, 9 times out of 10, your team will probably like that too. The same things with the things that you don't like about a manager. So that should be the foundation of how you should approach your leadership. Do the things that you liked in your manager. Don't do the things that your manager that you didn't like did. It before we go through anything else, that should be your foundation. And I promise you it'll help out a lot. One of probably the most important aspects of accountability in relationships is trust. Trust is such a special and important ingredient in all of this. And so we're going to spend some time talking about trust. And the first thing that I want to name is this. If you hired someone to do a job, more than likely they have the skills to do the job. So really we're just talking about what does it look like to actually trust them to do the job. Because that's what the biggest issue with micromanaging is. There just is a breakdown in trust. And so you feel like you have to be a lot more in versus trusting them to do it without you being around. I often talk about micromanaging because people don't really mention this, but micromanaging can oftentimes come from trauma and previous experiences. So I relate it to if you ever had an issue with the car. So you're driving and there is something going on with your engine. And so before you start your car, you always pop the hood, seeing what's going on down there. After you finish driving the car, you pop your hood. And it gets to the point where you're just so used to popping the hood all the time. Oh, you hear a little sound, you're gonna pop the hood. Oh, it was raining the day before, you're gonna pop the hood. Like you get really used to constantly popping the hood. You've even gotten 2 or 3 new cars that have been running perfectly, yet and still you are popping the hood all the time. And so the question is, what will it take for you to stop popping the hood and just trusting that the car can run and operate? That is the real thing that you'll need to start thinking about. And that is the correlation between a car that doesn't run and managing. Yeah, maybe you had an employee that you needed to micromanage, but that was like 2 or 3 employees ago, and that might have been 2 or 3 jobs ago. Why are you still managing like that? Is there an issue with your ability to trust others? So these are the questions that I want you to sit with. What does someone need to do to earn your trust? If you can write a list of things that someone in the workplace needs to do to earn your trust, I would suggest write those things down. And then the question I would ask right after that is, if they do those things, will you actually give them your trust? Because it's one thing for you to say, yeah, if you do these 5 things, I'll absolutely trust you. And they do those 5 things. And then you still don't show that you trust them. That means either the list you share was wrong or there's something deeper to your ability to trust someone that you're managing. And so you really got to sit and think about that. What does it take to earn your trust? And will it actually earn your trust if they do those things? And then the next couple of questions you need to think about is, what does trust look like to you as a leader? When you trust someone, what does that look like? What does that feel like? What is that experience like for someone who is being managed by you? Does it look like, oh, we're going to have a meeting every day? Does it look like I'm going to text you between 9 to 9 constantly? Or does it look like, hey, you might hear from me once a month? Like it varies. And you have to start honestly thinking about, if I truly trust this person, this is what it looks like for me to trust you. And you have to share that with your team. Because the last question that I ask is, what does trust look like for your staff member? Because what they think trust feels like could be a lot different than what you think trust feels like. So it's really important for the two sides to communicate and really talk through what their expectations are. How do you earn trust? And then how does it look and feel on a regular basis? Because that will really ease a lot of the tension that come into what people perceived as micromanaging versus you just showing up the way you believe a good manager should show up. And before we move on into this particular topic, there is a key factor in all of this that oftentimes doesn't get talked about unless people are just being annoyed with each other in the workplace, which is generations. We are a multi-generational workforce. We have at this point 4 to 5 different generations working in the same workforce. And so it's important to name it because different generations care about different things at work. There could be something that you, as a boomer, absolutely care about that your millennial coworker could care less about. There could be something that you focus on every day as a Gen X employee that your Gen Z counterpart does not understand that you do. And yet your Gen Z employee is spending copious amounts of time just making sure X, Y, and Z is in place, and your boomer coworker doesn't even know what that is. It doesn't mean anything is wrong with any particular generation. It just simply means that we have different values, different expectations, and different standards. And that's exactly why communication and expectations have to be explicit. Don't assume that a team defines accountability or trust the same way that you do. We're all coming with different stuff. And so it's important to talk about what that is, just like you would do in any relationship. And so, to further talk into how you can have these conversations, we're going to talk about what I believe is the most important tool in the toolbox as a leader, which is the one on one check in. I know I just said it, but it's important for me to say it again. It is the single best tool for managing and supporting your team. Having a consistent one on one check in with your staff member where you can talk about all the things you need to talk about. And if it is done right, both people walk away with exactly what they need to do their job. And isn't that the goal? To walk away with everyone knowing what to do and how to do it? I rest my case. That is the power of the one on one check in. It can absolutely help that. You can talk about goals, you can talk about priorities, you can talk about standards, you can talk about values, you can provide feedback to each other, you can talk about next steps, all in a matter of 30 to 60 minutes. And then you wouldn't have to talk to that person for another 2 weeks if you need to. That is the power of a check in. The check in, when done well, can answer almost all of your big issues as a manager. And so it's important to really think about how you utilize check-ins. Are they consistently happening? Do you value them? Does your staff member value them? And if not, what needs to change to make that not the case? Because it really can be a valuable tool for you. Now, V2R provides a template, a one-on-one check-in, but you can also Google it and you can even ask AI for a template check-in. I think the most important thing is to actually think about how you can utilize it if you're not utilizing it and how to make it better if you are using check-ins, but you don't feel like it is as dynamic as it could be. And I'll talk about a shift that I did in particular that I feel like made my check ins even more powerful. And that is talking about the difference between lead measures and lag measures. So, oftentimes in the world of social impact, and maybe even just the world in general, when we talk about goals, we really talk about it on a lag measure framing. So, for example, if someone's goal is to raise $50,000 in a year, uh, during the conversation, we're like, okay, well, how are you progressing on your goal to raise $50,000 or $50,000? So in Q2, you're supposed to raise 30,000. Did you raise 30,000? Yes. Okay, great. And then next time you talk, it'll be Q3. Q3, you're supposed to raise 40,000. Did you raise 40,000? Yes, I raised 40,000. Good job. And then next thing you know, you're at Q4. It's like, all right, the goal is 50,000. Did you raise it? And they're like, no, I didn't raise it. I'm at like 48,000. Well, how come you didn't get to 50,000? And all of a sudden, it's a combative conversation about not reaching the goal versus actually talking about what were the steps needed to take in order for that person to work towards the goal. And this happens all the time, especially in the world of social impact, where we just assume naming what the goal is and pushing that person who will reach the goal will magically have them do everything they need to do to reach the goal versus actually talking about the tactics it takes to reach that goal, which is what lead measures are. Lead measures are the activities that you do on a regular basis in order to reach the incremental goals that you have for your individual or for your team or for your organization as a whole. So instead of talking about raising the $50,000 and talking about quarter to quarter, did you get to the 30,000? Did you get to the 40,000? So on and so forth. Talk about the activities. Did you make the 5 phone calls you're supposed to make this week? Did you input all the data that you needed to? Did you send a thank you email 24 hours after the conversation you had with your funder? And so as you're talking about these tactics and you're like, okay, yeah, I saw that you didn't make these phone calls. Okay, what happened? What's going on with not being making the phone calls? And then you won't be surprised if you reach the goal. Well, see, I see that you didn't get to the 30,000, but I also see for the past 4 weeks you weren't able to make the 5 phone calls that you're supposed to. So maybe if you improve on making these phone calls, you'll be able to do X, Y, and Z. You can dig even deeper. Well, why didn't you make those phone calls? What can we do to set it up so you're able to do that? And if it's a performance issue, oh, you can't make the phone calls. Well, great. We got to have a performance improvement plan conversation so you can get to your goal and be able to deliver on the job. You see what I'm saying? Like it is actually talking about the activities versus fixating on the goal. The activities ideally will get to the goal. And I know some of you are thinking, well, what if the activities don't get to the goal? Well, then that's the conversation you should be having with your team. Once you get to a quarter and they've done everything that they're supposed to on that list of activities, on those lead measures, and it's not leading to the goal, well, guess what? The lead measures need to change. The tactics need to change because it's not getting to the goal. And so that should be the fruitful conversation that you have with your staff member versus fixating on the number, fixate on the activities that'll get them there. Next, we'll talk about what I believe is the most important superpower any social impact leader should have, which is the power to listening. Yes, I know you were thinking it was going to be fundraising. No, it is not fundraising. It is listening. Well, actually, fundraising is pretty important, but listening is even more important. Nearly everything we do in the world of social impact comes down to relationships. The relationships you have with your teams, with your boards, with your funders, with your stakeholders, the community, everyone. It all comes down to relationships. And probably the most important factor in a healthy relationship is your ability to listen and your ability to be heard. Unfortunately, when you've been a leader for a long time, one of the first things that goes away is your listening skill because all of a sudden you're just assuming that you know what you're talking about. You've seen this report before, you've dealt with this situation before, you've had this conversation before, you've been in this tight spot before, you've heard this message from a funder before. It starts to become monotonous, or you just have experienced it and you know what to do because you've done it 4 or 5, 6,000 times already. And so all of a sudden you start listening less and you start saying more and telling people to do more versus actually listening from their experience and talking to them. And I gotta tell you, that's tough. That is not the position that you need to be because the most important lessons come when we stop assuming and start listening. Listening builds trust, it uncovers the needs that aren't obvious, and it helps people feel seen. And that's what helps relationships grow and thrive. The strongest relationships aren't built on having the right answer, they're built on making the other person feel heard. So, listening is the foundation of trust, and trust is the foundation of accountability. So, if you're really starting to think about what are these issues when it comes to micromanaging and you being told that you're a micromanager or things of that nature, it might actually come down to the fact that you may not be as strong and active as a listener as your team may need you to be. So I reiterate, listening is such an important and powerful tool that I strongly consider you thinking about how you're playing that out in your day-to-day work. So let's recap. Accountability starts with trust. Define what trust means for you and your team and say it out loud so they hear it and so you hear it. So now everybody knows what it means to feel trusted and to be trusted. Two, use the check-ins. One-on-one check-ins are powerful. They are amazing. If you don't believe it, try it out. I promise you, all of a sudden, you'll feel like you actually know what to do as a leader. Do one-on-one check-ins. And then last but not least, listen more, talk less. I promise you it will improve all the relationships that you're in, including outside of the social impact space. Promise you, listening more will absolutely help you. Before we go on to questions, just want to remind you all that we will share this recap video in a couple of days. Just stay tuned and watch out for an email. If you enjoyed conversations like this, I invite you to join the Vision Builders community, where we have conversations like this on a regular basis to help you get to where you need to go. And last but not least, if you want to hear more, you can follow us and connect with us at v2r.me. And of course, I'm at our email, niels at v2r.me, where either myself or someone on my team will get back to you and share more. And with that, we will turn it to your questions. All right, we have a few questions in here. When have you felt most motivated and what did your manager do or not do to create a positive environment? Great question. So, when have you felt most motivated? I felt most motivated in a workplace when I knew what to do, I knew how to do it, and I was told I was good at it, and I knew it was going to lead to the success that we all talked about, or to the goal that we all talked about. Ain't nothing like having clarity on what to do, how to do it, and you know it's going to lead to what you want, and everyone is telling you you're great at it. Woo! I'm sure that's what Michael Jordan feel like, right? So I implore you to start thinking about setting somebody up to feel that way, that they know what to do, they know how to do it, they know you believe in them, and they know it'll get to where it needs to go. Can't beat that. Can't beat that. And another question is, what did your manager do or not do to create that positive environment? And it's so funny, they didn't do one of those things. I've been in a situation where I knew I was good at a job, I knew how to do it, and I knew it would lead to the goal, but I didn't know what to do. Isn't that interesting? If you know, like, it's that weird. If one of those things are missing, you don't feel successful. If you know what to do, but you don't know how to do it, or if you know what to do and you know how to do it, but you don't feel like you're good at it, or if you know what to do, you know how to do it, you feel like you're good at it, but you don't feel like it's going to lead to the success that you've been fighting for, any of those things can inhibit your motivation, right? So it's an important combination, and all those things need to happen. You need to know what to do. You need to know how to do it. You need to feel like you're good at it, and you need to feel like it's going to lead to the results that you want, whether it's you or whether it's somebody that you're managing. All right. Next question. How do you calibrate your approach for different people on the same team? Great question. This is actually like if we were going to do another webinar, this would be what 2.0 or the 102 class. This is the 101 class. That'll be the 102 or the 201. I don't remember what the college breakdown is, but it would be the next level of class. Um, there are a few things to consider because every individual is different, but you also have a team factor as well. And so there's a way that you manage your team, and then there's a way you manage individuals within your team. Everyone needs to be very clear on what the goals are, right? And everyone needs to be very clear that everyone is doing the work that they should be doing in their role. Of course, some people may feel like they're working harder than others, and some people may be working harder than the others. But if everyone feels like they're doing what they're supposed to do, and no one is being considered a favorite more than anyone else, and it leads to the goal, then that is like the great foundation for the team. And the team will usually be in a good place as long as they respect each other and they believe in each other. So just like trust is important for you, trust is also important for the team. And you'll have to spend some time thinking about what will it take for them to not just trust you, but for them to trust each other. And oftentimes it's really just communication and utilizing those team spaces for them to really talk about the things that may inhibit trust. So it's like, yeah, if you told me you're going to give me this report on Friday and I don't get it until like 2 weeks on a Thursday, I may not trust you to do that again when I ask you to like give me the report on Friday. So really talk about like, hey, what does it mean for you to trust me as a coworker? And those are the conversations that you can happen. Obviously, there's a lot of fun ways. Team builders, I strongly suggest you do those. Icebreakers and really talk about like stressful topics, but also fun topics in that space because it can lead to folks actually better learning and understanding each other. But when we talk about on individual setting, like how are you working with somebody who is very different than the other person, that is where those one-on-one check-ins are key. When you're explicitly saying, hey, what do you need in order to do your job? And you write it down and you refer to it every check-in, that gives that person exactly what they need in that space. And it can be completely different than somebody else in that space. But you need to have consistent check-ins in order to understand that. And you need to be able to track it. You need to have it documented. You need to be able to refer to it. Big suggestion. I'm sure this might sound like common sense, but it don't hurt to say it before you have your check-in, look at the last check-in. Look at the notes you wrote down in the last check-in. Sometimes you may need to look 2 check-ins ago and review those notes before you do your check-in now and refer to what you said in the previous check-in. You know what that feels like as someone being managed when my boss has looked at the check-in, has referred to the notes and has came into the conversation prepared. I was like, oh, you actually care about this time in this space. You actually want to hear about what we're talking about. You're actually paying attention to what I'm saying to you. Even if I don't like you, I'm going to be a little bit more on my game because I know that you're actually paying attention. That is how you differentiate how you manage. You just focus on that person, you give them the space, you take notes, and you refer to those notes, and you have a genuine conversation. And yes, of course, you listen. You listen to what they're saying and you document it. That is my advice. All right. I believe that is it. I don't see any more questions. So, y'all have a great evening. It was so great talking to you all. Again, look out for email for the recap video. And if you have any more questions, we'd love to hear from you. Just reach out. All right, y'all. Take care.